it's because it has something about it as a country. People are so kind and laid back, and there's this very like time is just very different, and I think that would bother me at first, but I appreciate the attitude. We're like, somebody's late, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter. Like, it's just very very laid back, very go with the flow, and I appreciate that attitude. It's nice to be surrounded by that. It is so different from here.
Yeah, so different from white culture.
Totally. Yeah.
Very
family oriented, story of everything. I just really love it.
Yeah, cool. Where in Mexico did you go that you loved?
I really loved Guadalajara. It's sort of a bigger city. It was really, really interesting. A great mix of like small town Mexico, like small town America, just like very different, and then an old city, which I thought was cool.
Cool. So how about you out there? Where did you go that you loved the most, that you took a vacation to or just drove through, whatever it is? Put that in the comments. I'd love to hear where you visited, so we can be like, wow, I can be jealous of you and all the places that you've gone. I think Yellowstone is out there. Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons and Glacier National Park. Those are my favorite that I've gone to. They're just incredible. So today we are talking about something very strange, and you're gonna have to hang with us here because initially it's not gonna sound like there's hope in this, but I do think in this weird way that there's hope in sort of seeing life. We're talking about impermanence today, and how basically everything is fading away. Everything will die, which it doesn't seem like there's hope in that, but I think there is. So as we talk through this, maybe we can find some hope in it. I was thinking about two scriptures that came to my mind here. One, when Jesus was sort of at the end of his life in Matthew 24, and he's basically talking about the end of all things in some sense, and we sometimes think this is like the end times, what Jesus is talking about. I don't. I think he's talking about the fall of Jerusalem, and the fall of Rome, and there's all this happening right here. But he says this. Jesus says at the end of Matthew 24, he says, "Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." So like even here Jesus is talking about this idea like everything is going to pass away, like all things, but my words will always be here. And so like we know from like the Bible, the New Testament, the Gospels playing this idea of words, right? And in the beginning was the Word of God. And so this idea of the Word of God is I don't think is about like the words God speaks, but more about God's essence, God's presence, God's who God is in the fullness. And to me, this comes back to love, like God is love. And so like the fullness of God's essence is God's loving presence over, within, around us in our lives. And it fills us inside. I mean, that's what we are made of inside, that we are breathed. God's breath is in us. God's word is in us. And so like that will always be. And so, but everything else, like it's passing away, and like that's strange sometimes to think about, but it is absolutely true. I mean, this is one of the hard lessons in life, I think, and I think I'm learning it in the middle of my life here as I kind of come to the second half of my life, that everything is dying, like everything is ending, everything will end, and that's hard. That's a hard thought, but I think if we begin to think through it, there's something comforting in it. And hang with us as we talk through this, because it makes sense to me, and I don't know if it makes sense to you, but it makes sense to me. Maybe it will make sense to you. But like I think as humans, we want everything to last forever. This is where our brains are kind of built. We want everything to last forever. We want that job that we love to last forever. We want the relationships we like to last forever. We want us to last forever. But nothing does. Like everything stops. Everything ends. And I think that when we come to this terms, and at least this is what I'm trying to pray through and be in, like when we can kind of come to terms with the fact, like, this will end, whatever this is, that it almost frees us up to live more fully in the moment, to live more free in the moment. I think about like high school or college, right? We all, hopefully everybody who went to high school, some of us went to college, but they didn't last forever.
Right.
They stopped.
And we knew that going in. And I think there is something really nice about knowing when something's going to end, because then you can pace yourself and you can really live it up at certain points, and then it's not so devastating when you all go your separate ways. And so there is something, you're not trying to make it last forever. You have no control over the time that it is. But I do think there's something about when there's some part of our life that feels open-ended, and we like it, and we've invested in it, and we feel like we have to make it last forever. And so then we always have this like slight pressure in the back of our heads that is pushing us to design it and design our time in it so that it continues and continues and continues. Where we maybe could live in the moment more if we accepted the fact that it will end. Yeah,
it will end. Like, I mean, it would be silly, like, if we just tried to be in high school. I mean, some people loved high school. I didn't love high school that much, but some people loved high school. But it'd be silly, right, if we're, like, 30 years old and still trying to be in high school.
Yeah.
We're like, that's stupid. You're
season.
Stupid. Why you've lived your whole life, like, half your life has gone by, and you're trying to still live in this moment that's gone.
Right.
And I think, like, we do that. Like, that's a silly example, right? Like, oh, gosh, who would do that? But yet we do that with different things. We want that thing, whatever it was that we felt good in, to last forever. And I think about relationships. Now, this is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets really hard. Is in human relationships with one another.
But we have seasonal relationships up until we get out of college. And that's okay. And I think a lot of us don't, like, all our friends that we had in college, we don't really keep up with them anymore. We all moved to different places, or our lives just took different turns. And so we accept that that's a normal part of life until we get here. And then we expect, since we don't have that sort of like rotation in our lives, we expect those relationships to last for forever. But what we don't realize is that we still are living in seasons. They just aren't defined by someone else.
Yeah.
They are just natural life seasons. And I was thinking about relationships that I've had at different points in my life where, I really feel like the universe and God sort of opened up and brought people to me that I needed during certain periods. But then it came to a natural end. Yeah. But it was hard for me to let it go. Because I felt like, did I fail? Like, did I drop the ball here? But really it was just that what had brought us together, which was maybe something we were involved in together, or we were living a very similar story at the time, that sort of naturally ended. And I think by the time you realize a relationship is ended, it actually ended quite a while ago.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that we do, and that may be one of the reasons why we want to hold on to things, is because within relationships, or really like a job or anything else, like, we begin to define ourselves by what we get from that.
Yeah.
And so that relationship or that job or that situation makes us feel a certain way. We define our lives by that feeling. And so we don't want that to go away because we've defined ourselves. And now we're like, we are not sure the footing that we have to move forward in a life that doesn't have that thing with us. And so here we are, and so we want to hold on to it. We're afraid to let go. But oftentimes, like, we spend our life trying to get back to that thing that we had, that feeling that we had, that footing that we had. And I think the reality of life is that there's no footing. Like, there's footing is sort of a myth. Like, you're always going to be in like a no footing area. And so I think, well, like, for me, I'm feeling freed in some sense of like, well, that's going to end. And like, I can celebrate it for what it was. I can look back on it for what it was. Sometimes we we have to leave a church that we love. We move out of town, or here we are. We have this incredible community.
Yeah.
And something happens and we leave, and we don't have that anymore. And so then we can like spend years trying to recreate that moment. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
I think like that's only going to create suffering, to try to recreate what we have, because you will never have that the way it was again.
Right.
And so I think celebrating that for what it is, realizing that it was beautiful and good, and that chapter has closed, and now it's time to write a new chapter.
Right. Even things that end poorly. I think even things that we outgrow or realize aren't good for us anymore, and we need to leave it. It's not just situational. I think even like in those instances, we tend to categorize the whole experience as negative, when actually it probably was beautiful up until a certain point when you felt like you needed to move on. But if it ends badly, we go, oh, well, that was a terrible choice.
Yeah,
that was a
yeah,
bad
yeah.
experience. Instead of going, that was a season that naturally ended. And for most of it, it was absolutely beautiful. It was a tough ending.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful for that time in my life.
Yeah.
But we have a really hard time finding gratitude in those things that don't end well.
And so then this it begs the question, and for me, like, this is a little bit personal with my kids, and especially like my relationship with my oldest son now, who's 17, and his life has changed dramatically over the last year, and that's like, it's been sad for me in a lot of ways to kind of, my relationship with him is very different. My future with him is going to be very different, and so like, but that relationship won't leave. Like it's so then we have these relationships. Some will move around, but some like are here, family, like, right?
Yeah.
Family's here always, no matter what. But I think like in some sense it's similar in. I mean, I heard somebody say one time about like they've been married for a long time, and they're like, they've been married to the same person, but they're like, I've been married to 6 different people.
Right. Because you change so much.
Change.
Yeah.
You change, and everybody changes dramatically over the course of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Events happen, experiences happen. It changes us, and so like here I am. This is what I'm dealing with now, like in my internal work of my son has changed in a sense. And so I really have been struggling with, like, I had a certain relationship that was a certain way, and I kind of projected that in the future of what this will be like.
Right.
Now that's different, and now what I'm having to do is sort of celebrate what was, realize this is changing, and this can be something else.
And I think that we can celebrate and grieve at the same time. I think that it's okay to see something that was totally beautiful and that ended in a way you didn't want it to end simultaneously.
Yeah. And, you know, as a pastor, like, this is what we do at funerals.
Right.
This is when somebody dies, we all were crushed by this crushing loss of this person. But yet, what do we do at funerals? We celebrate.
The life.
We remember, people tell stories about the great moments of their life. And so, like, in some sense, we're losing this relationship, this person that we have loved dearly, who has impacted our life, but we're remembering the best.
Yeah.
We're remembering the things that gave us life, that gave them life, the light that they were in our life and in the world.
Yeah. And gosh, what if we, like, wouldn't it be such a gift to give people around us to say, like, hey, the you that is you now might not be the you that I meet tomorrow, but that's okay. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Like, whatever sort of changes our relationship has to go through, that's okay. I mean, especially for our children, because we know that we're completely different than we were when we were little.
Yeah.
The way we saw the world, the way we interacted with people, and, like, I think our parents want to keep us in that little space.
Yeah.
But that's just a tiny bit of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, like, this is strangely hopeful. Like, if you kind of take it and walk through this, it's strangely hopeful for me to help me realize I should live in the moment. So the relationships that I have right now, I should celebrate and love and cherish and experience to the fullest, whether that is like family or friends or church or a job. Like, not worrying about, like, oh my gosh, this is going to come to an end, and what am I going to do when that happens?
Right.
Or like, oh my gosh, this is going to change. So like living in the future, I think that just causes suffering. and it doesn't allow you to live in the moment. And so, like, for me, the reality that this will end is like, okay, somewhere out there this will end. I don't know when, but right now I want to live in the moment for it.
Yeah.
I want to soak it up, like suck the marrow out of life in that movie, like what a Dead Poets Society, like suck the marrow out of life. I think that's how we should be living.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be a lot happier and healthier. And then when it's time to things change, we're like, okay, this will change.
Yeah.
All things are passing away, and this is passing away.
Then when you're thinking that way, when you're thinking seasonally, when you're thinking like, I'm really enjoying this season that I'm in right now, it's not so much that you're fearful, like, I know this is going to end, but when it starts to end, you've been ready for it. Like, you knew this whole time. And then there's hope in that because we know that it's something new is coming. And we give space for something new to come. And I think that each of us in these different seasons, we can say, like, some seasons are really hard, and then some seasons are really good. And we can't predict what's coming next, but we always know there is good. Like, there's going to be good. There's going to be something good, because there always has been. And I think sometimes in holding on to something for too long, we don't leave any room for anything else to come into our lives, because we are so consumed with keeping our comfort right around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, that, seeing that newness around us, is the story I shared. My son, like, sad that we're leaving Yellowstone, and I'm driving south through the Grand Tetons, which are like this incredible scenery, and I'm just sad that I had to leave Yellowstone.
Right.
And I wasn't seeing what was around me.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, wake up, man. You were in a beautiful space. Yes, that is over. That's done. It was great. Now look, you're in another great place.
Yeah.
With great people and another situation that is beautiful. And I think it's like life. We, just if we kind of came to understand, we move from one beautiful space to another beautiful space. It's like we just have to see that.
Yeah. Sometimes there's a dip. Sometimes there's a moment of grieving. Sometimes there's a sort of focusing of us. But I think, like, living to see the periphery, to see all of the goodness that is around us, and being open to all that life has for us is so much better than holding on to a good day or a good moment or a good relationship that has come to its natural end.
Yeah. And so realizing that, like, what we have that will not is love.
Right.
Like, we'll always have that love within us, that God's breath of love within us. And so to cherish that, realize we take that everywhere. And so if we live that out in the world, like, that's a beautiful way to live. And for me, that's freeing. That's hopeful.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to live that way. It's really, it's a different way to see the world. It's a different way than we've been taught. But to me, it's beautiful. So I don't know if that helps you today. If that's a word that encourages you today. It's encouraging in this sense of, like, this season that we are in will also end.
Yeah.
This pandemic season, this craziness, like, that will come to an end too. And so that's what we look forward to. So let's try to make the best of this thing we're in. See the new possibilities that have opened up because of it, the new ways. Find that, navigate that, and find the love in this space, because it's here. It's all around us as well. Yeah. So that's it for us today. Hopefully, it's been a word that you can dwell on and think about and find those beautiful spaces in your life as you are driving through this beautiful landscape of life where God is bringing and birthing up newness all around you. So hope you have a great day. If you need any prayer, put that in the comments. If those places that you've been that you've loved, put those in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And so till next time, hope you have a great week. See you soon.